So, today we're going to look at something really ambitious. It's a project with this wild goal to build a kind of connection engine for all of humanity's knowledge. And the reason why? To help us all start dreaming big again. And really, this whole thing kicks off with this one simple question. But man, it's a powerful one. It kind of hits you on a personal level, but it's also about, well, all of us. What happened to that fire, that ambition that pushed us to do these incredible things? That's the problem the Stellar Advancement Protocol is trying to fix. And this slide just nails the difference, doesn't it? Look at this, 1969, we literally walked on the moon. Today, we're arguing about quarterly earnings. It feels like we've traded these epic century-long visions for, 90-day reports. So what happened? What caused this grand stall? To figure this out, we've got to diagnose the problem first, right? The core idea behind the Stellar Advancement Protocol is that our ambition isn't gone. It's not that we don't want to do big things. It's just paralyzed. And it's paralyzed because our collective brain, our shared intelligence, is all broken up into pieces. And this quote right here, this is the light bulb moment. What if humanity's challenge isn't that we need to think harder, but that we need to think together? It's funny. Some researchers think Einstein's genius was because he had this super dense connection between the two halves of his brain. He wasn't just a math whiz, he was a master connector of ideas that seemed totally unrelated. The theory is that humanity has the exact same issue. We have all the brilliant parts, all the specialized knowledge, but the connections, they're just not there. The different parts of our brain aren't talking to each other. So this fragmentation, it creates these three massive bottlenecks that stop us in our tracks. First, there's knowledge segregation. Basically, every field has its own secret language, its own jargon that traps great ideas inside. Then you've got implementation complexity. The projects we want to tackle now are just so huge, our old ways of doing things can't handle them. And finally, number three, temporal mismatch. And wow, this one is a biggie. Just look at this table. Our whole world, from business to politics, it runs on these super short timelines. Quarterly earnings, election cycles. But the stuff that really matters, the projects that could actually change everything, like, say, solving energy for good, that takes decades, generations even. It's crazy, right? We used to build cathedrals that took centuries, and now we can barely plan past the next 4 years. Okay, so if the problem is that everything's broken apart, well, the solution has to be connection, right? And the goal of all this connection, it's huge. It's to help humanity become what's known as a Type 2 civilization. So, what on earth is a Type 2 civilization? Well, there's this thing called the Kardashev scale, and it's basically a way to rank how advanced a civilization is by how much energy it can control. A Type 2 civilization, that's one that can capture and use all the energy from its own star. Think about that. It's a civilization that has basically solved the energy problem forever. So where do we stand on that scale? Right now? Right about 0.73. We're not even a Type 1 yet. That would mean using all the energy available on our own planet. So yeah, that number, it really puts things into perspective. It shows just how massive the gap is and why we need to speed things up, like a lot. And here's where it gets really interesting. The protocol says the answers we need to get there aren't just going to come from scientists and lab coats. Think about it. History is full of these happy accidents, right? The microwave was invented because an engineer working on radar noticed his chocolate bar melted in his pocket. The big idea here is that we don't just need more experts, we need more connections between all different kinds of people and their unique knowledge. Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? What could these connections do? And these aren't just, sci-fi dreams. These are real possibilities. What if a welder, who understands heat and metal better than anyone, has the missing piece for containing a fusion reaction? Or what if the code that runs a massive online game with millions of players is the perfect way to manage a swarm of thousands of satellites? That's the kind of game-changing power we're talking about. Okay, this all sounds amazing, but how do you do it? How do you make these brilliant connections happen on purpose instead of just waiting for lightning to strike? Well, that's the next part. The protocol wants to turn this whole process from a lottery into an assembly line, a systematic engine for discovery. And the inspiration for this comes from a pretty unexpected place, the Aravind Eye Hospital in India. They perform a staggering number of surgeries, and they do it by realizing something brilliant. You don't need a master surgeon for every single step. So they broke down the complex process into smaller, simpler tasks that non-experts could be trained to do perfectly. The protocol just takes that same exact idea and applies it to science. You don't need a PhD physicist for every single step of making a physics breakthrough. And this is what that assembly line looks like. It's a 5-step process. Step 1, AI tools scan through mountains of technical papers and pull out the core problems and solutions. Step 2, people trained as simplifiers translate all that dense jargon into plain English concepts. Step 3, this is the magic. Specialists look for those simplified patterns in totally different fields. Step 4, the experts come in to quickly say, yes, this could work, or no, that's a dead end. And finally, step 5, document everything. The wins, the losses, all of it. The end result? You're basically transforming breakthrough discovery from a lottery ticket into a production pipeline. You stop waiting around hoping for that 1 in a million eureka moment. Instead, you build a factory that churns out potential connections day in, after day out, after day. And the people who do this are part of what's called the Pattern Recognition Corps. Now, these folks aren't experts in everything. That's not the point. Instead, they become specialists in a type of pattern. For example, someone might specialize in heat and energy. They learn to see how that pattern works everywhere, whether it's in a chef's kitchen, a metal forge, or a fusion reactor. Which brings us to, honestly, the most important part of this whole idea. This isn't some exclusive club for experts. It's an open invitation. So let's talk about how you can connect the dots, how you can find your role in what could be humanity's greatest project. Because there are so many different ways to jump in, depending on who you are. Maybe you're a natural pattern recognizer. You just see how things fit together. Or maybe you're a problem harvester. You work in an industry, you're on the front lines, and you know the real problems that need solving. Or you could be a solution miner, someone with years of hands-on experience, with all those little tricks of the trade that could be a total game changer somewhere else. The point is, the system needs all of these different kinds of people. And this right here, this is probably the most powerful idea in the whole protocol. You don't need a fancy degree. You don't need a list of credentials. In fact, sometimes not being the expert is your superpower. It's your fresh set of eyes, your different perspective that can spot the connection a specialist is just too close to see. So, we end up right back where we started, with a question. The whole idea of the Stellar Advancement Protocol is a massive bet. It's a bet that the answers to our biggest problems, they're already out there. They're just scattered across millions of us, in millions of different minds. The trick isn't to invent something new from scratch, but to connect what we already know. It's the idea that your experience, your way of seeing the world, might be the exact key to solving a problem that someone else thinks is impossible. So the only real question left for you is, what pattern will you recognize today?